So let's talk a little bit about your programming plan. And you can use flowcharts or pseudocode. So we're going to plan our program that we just did and show you what it would look like. And so when you're doing a program plan for functions using flowcharting, you're going to start with the main method. And ours just had greeting in it. So you represent that you're going to a function by a rectangle that has lines in it. And this is referred to as a predefined process, a function. And so we had the function greeting. And then we end it. So this was a very short program. You would usually have a bunch of predefined processes. But this isn't where you're done. For each predefined process, each function, you should think of each function as a mini program. And so we would have a function called greeting. And in that function, we would display our lines. So you don't need it to be line for line, so just display greeting. And instead of end, it would return. So here's how to think of the logic. We start with the program here. We enter into the greeting logic, then it goes and it finds that named function. It goes through that logic, and then it stops here where it would go down if there were anything else to call. So it goes out and it comes back and it returns directly after that point in the logic. So we're going to render that exact logic in pseudocode. So pseudocode, I really want you to think of it as a bunch of little programs. So that for each segment, you put what variables you're going to need and then what you're going to do. So I didn't have any variables in this. So I would have my main. And if I'm going to say call a function, I will just call greetings. And then if I was going to do something else, call goodbye, whatever. So we could list our functions one after the other. And then beneath that, and you might or might not separate them by a line, you would have greetings. And we might have a variable, so we might have username. We didn't, but we could have. And then see if you did that, and it was only a local variable, you would just list that variable inside the function. And we'll talk a little bit about how you use variables and where they're seen by the program in an upcoming lecture. But right now, just know that when you're planning the program, functions should be treated like their own little individual programs. So it makes your programming modular, which makes it easier to test, easier to maintain, and you can reuse functions. And then you can also create libraries of functions that we can import, and a lot of those exist. We're already using functions that are built into Python with things like print, but soon we're going to get to importing whole libraries for math, for various things like that, that give us a bunch of different functions in the library. And we could create our own of those. So having the ability to break programs down into smaller functions gives you a lot of advantages for testing, for code reuse, just for simplifying the logic. So think of a function as a unique mini program.